You gave her everything, your time, your loyalty, your heart. And still, she walked away, like it never mattered. Have you ever wondered what truly guides a high-value woman when she chooses a man, and why, so often, her decision seems to defy logic, timing, or even love itself? Because for women of real depth and self-worth, loving a man is one thing, but deciding to build a life with him, that's something entirely different. Hi, I'm Vernon again. In today's video, I'll break down how high-value women choose their men, not based on surface traits, but on how a man holds his frame, leads with grounded presence, and handles emotional pressure. And if this message resonates with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It helps more thoughtful men like you find the wisdom they've been quietly seeking. Let's get into it, starting with the one thing most men overlook, but every high-value woman quietly watches for: how you show up when nothing is said, but everything is felt.
1. The hidden contrast: how wise women love differently from wounded ones. There's a quiet but powerful difference between a woman who loves with wisdom and a woman who loves from wounding. A high-value woman does not enter love with the need to be rescued. She has already rescued herself. She doesn't look for a man to complete her. She looks for a man who complements the life she's already crafted with care. She is self-sourced. Her identity is not built around the man she's with, but around the truth she lives by. And that truth includes standards, not to test your worth, but to protect her peace. She doesn't choose based on how much attention you give her, but how you carry your attention inward first. Can you regulate your emotions without projecting them? Can you hold space without trying to fix her? To her, leadership isn't loud. It's the quiet confidence of a man who knows who he is, even when everything outside him is uncertain. Now contrast that with a woman led by emotional voids. Her love is hungry, often frantic. She seeks intensity because she hasn't found internal stillness. Her attraction may be powerful, but unstable. She may call it passion, but it's really a plea for emotional anchoring. The difference is subtle, but profound. One loves you through a lens of clarity. The other loves you through a haze of need. And here's the truth most men miss. The more grounded you are in your own masculine center, the more clearly you'll be able to tell the difference. A high-value woman doesn't choose her partner just because she feels deeply for him. She watches, she measures, she waits. She asks herself whether this is a man who can lead with emotional stability, or is he rooted in his values when things get difficult? Does he respond or does he react? In contrast, a woman ruled by emotional dependency will confuse intensity with intimacy. She may attach quickly, fall deeply, but without discernment. Where the high-value woman observes, the emotionally reactive woman assumes. Where the high-value woman tests for strength, the emotionally dependent woman clings to comfort. You see, a wise woman doesn't need you to be perfect. She needs you to be present, grounded, and clear in your inner world. Because she's built her life with intention, and she won't risk that on someone who can't even lead himself. The philosopher Epictetus once wrote, First, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. A high-value woman lives by that, and she expects the man beside her to do the same. So the question becomes, how does she know? How does a woman like that truly see the man in front of her, beyond the words, beyond the performance?
2. The silent tests. How a woman's instinct reveals who you truly are. What does she see when you say nothing? When life gets inconvenient, or when your ego is quietly challenged? What signals are you sending? High-value women aren't watching for grand gestures. They're tuned in to the energy beneath your words. How do you handle silence or pressure? How do you carry yourself when no one's watching? First silent test, how you deal with your own emotional pressure. Do you collapse, lash out, or remain centered? The way you weather your storms tells her how safe you'll be during hers. Second, your purpose. A high-value woman doesn't just want to be desired. She wants to feel you're anchored in something beyond her. When your mission is clear, your energy becomes steady. When it's missing, you seek validation. Save this video if it's making you reflect, because we're only getting deeper. She'll also notice how you respond when she sets a boundary. Do you meet it with resistance or with presence? Because to her, a boundary isn't a rejection, it's a reflection of where she's learning to feel safe. And how you meet that moment tells her what kind of ground you're standing on. And then there's uncertainty, the gray space of life where nothing is guaranteed. Can you breathe there? Can you lead calmly when answers aren't clear? Or do you rush to fix, to force, to dominate the unknown just to feel in control? These aren't games. They are intuitive ways women gauge your core. And even when unspoken, they're always present. If you fail them, not from imperfection, but from unawareness, she'll quietly move on. So where does that leave you? With a choice. Will you lead yourself before trying to lead anyone else? When a woman sees you grounded and clear, not shaken by discomfort, she begins to trust. And trust is where real connection begins. Let's go even deeper, because choosing a man isn't only about character, it's about power dynamics. And this is where most good men unknowingly disqualify themselves. 3. Power without pressure. How masculine leadership creates space for feminine trust. A relationship is less like a contract and more like a current, flowing, shifting, responding. In this current, masculine leadership is not about force. It's about holding the banks so the river can move freely. True leadership, the kind that draws in a high-value woman, isn't loud. It doesn't push or prove. It offers calm direction in a world that often feels chaotic. Masculine presence creates a steady pulse, not to dominate her space, but to invite her into safety. Not to lead her emotions, but to ground the emotional field you both share. You don't need to overpower. You need to remain rooted. Women feel it when you're leading from ego, and they feel it just as clearly when you're leading from depth. One makes her contract, the other makes her open. Many men try to get her to soften before they've softened their own inner noise.
They offer reassurance with their words, but not with their presence. And a high-value woman, she senses the difference. She won't surrender to pressure. She opens only when clarity enters the room. And that clarity doesn't come from control. It comes from a man who leads himself first. In his stillness, she finds space. In his self-trust, she can rest. Because the woman doesn't relax because you tell her to. She relaxes because you are relaxed. And when you can hold your center in silence, in uncertainty, in the messiness of life, she sees something she can finally trust. The more pressure you put on her to feel safe, the less safe she feels. But the more you embody quiet authority, not the kind that demands, but the kind that simply is, the more she naturally returns to her own softness. That's the space where polarity is restored. In the next section, let's explore what it means to lead emotionally, not by fixing, but by guiding. Not by changing her, but by anchoring you.
4. Emotional presence. What my wife taught me about holding space. Not long ago, during one of our quiet walks together, my wife turned to me and said something I'll never forget. She said, "You know why I chose you? It wasn't because you always knew what to say. It was because you didn't try to change how I felt. You just stood there. You stayed with me." That moment landed deeply, because until then, I thought strength meant fixing things, solving, protecting. But what she showed me was this: the kind of man a high-value woman chooses isn't the one who calms the storm. It's the one who becomes calm within it. She told me, "You gave me space to feel everything without making me feel like a burden for it." That was leadership. Not loud, not forceful, just present. I've learned that emotional leadership isn't about control. It's about capacity. Your ability to hold complexity, her emotions, your discomfort, life's uncertainty, without running. You don't need to fix her sadness. You need to let her know it's safe to feel it. You don't need to rescue her from her doubt. You need to show her you're not afraid to stand next to it. As the philosopher Rainer Maria Rilke once said, "The point of marriage is not to create a quick haven, but to stand guard over one another's solitude." And when you think about that, really think about it, you begin to see that presence is not about stepping into her world to take over, but about being strong enough to hold space without needing to change it. It's about respecting the quiet battles she fights, not trying to win them for her. That's not weakness, that's sacred strength. And sometimes, the strongest thing a man can do is sit quietly with a woman's truth and not flinch. That's what she saw in me. And maybe, just maybe, that's what the woman you're thinking of is hoping to see in you. If this part of the video resonates with you, take a moment to like it. Not just to support the channel, but to mark this truth for yourself. But we're not done yet, because emotional leadership is only one part of the puzzle. Next, we're going to explore a truth that most men resist: the role of feminine energy in choosing the right mate. 5. The feminine compass: why her energy leads the way. We live in a world that often praises logic over intuition, structure over flow. But a high-value woman does not move only from logic. She moves from her felt sense,
from the intelligence of her body, her timing, her emotional undercurrent. Feminine energy isn't weakness, it's sensitivity sharpened by experience. It doesn't rush to choose, it waits, watches, and senses. And when a woman chooses a man, it's not just his achievements she evaluates, it's how her nervous system responds to him. Does she feel more herself around him? Or does she feel the need to contract, perform, or manage his state? The feminine body is like a tuning fork. It knows. Even when her mind hasn't caught up, her body registers safety, clarity, and presence long before words are exchanged. This is why masculine posturing fails. Because no matter how much a man says he's in control, if his energy betrays insecurity, she will feel it and retreat. You don't connect to feminine energy through dominance. You connect by creating space for her intuition to speak. And that space is built not just with patience, but with integrity. A woman anchored in her feminine won't chase. She won't beg. But if she senses real, grounded masculine presence, she'll begin to open. And here's the part most men miss. It's not her job to make you feel chosen. Her role is not to fill the gaps in your self-worth. Her openness is an invitation, not a guarantee. It is your responsibility to become someone who can be clearly seen and authentically chosen, not for the image you project, but for the essence you embody when no one's watching. Because the feminine doesn't respond to performance, it responds to resonance. And if your presence is built on a mask, she may smile, but she won't stay. To be chosen by a high-value woman is not a validation of who you wish to be. It is a reflection of who you've truly become. Because feminine energy, when trusted, becomes the compass that guides the relationship forward. And only a man who respects that current can truly walk beside her. Now let's turn our gaze towards something men often misinterpret, the reason why women test, and what they're really searching for beneath the surface.
6 women test to find what's real, not what's perfect. Know thyself, the Greeks once inscribed at the temple of Apollo, not as a suggestion, but as a sacred call to inner mastery. And in the space between a man and a woman, that wisdom is tested in quiet, subtle ways, often without a single word spoken. You see, when a woman tests a man, it's not out of malice or manipulation. It's not a game. It's a search for something solid, something she can lean into. She's asking, not with her lips, but with her energy, is your calm real, or is it a mask that slips when challenged? Do you live your values, or only speak them when it's easy? What many men interpret as confrontation is actually an invitation to stay consistent, an invitation to show depth, an invitation to hold your ground without turning cold. She's not trying to provoke you, she's trying to see you. Because underneath every moment that feels like a test, there's a deeper question. Can I trust you to stay when I stop performing? And perhaps even more sacred, can you stand steady even when I'm uncertain within myself? These tests don't come on cue. They're woven into the rhythm of real connection. And when they arise, the man who is rooted will not react, he will respond. Not to win, not to prove, but simply to remain. And in his steadiness, she doesn't just find safety, she finds a reflection of her own strength mirrored through the quiet presence of a man who knows himself. In that space, something beautiful happens. Respect is born. Not the kind that's demanded, the kind that's earned, moment by moment.
Now, when you take a step back and see the full picture, the wisdom, the presence, the quiet strength, something becomes undeniably clear. This isn't about tricks or tactics. It's about who you are when no one's watching, and whether that man is steady enough to be trusted with something real. A high-value woman doesn't choose based on charm or surface confidence. She chooses the man who has come to know himself, not in theory, but in practice. The one who's met his own fears, sat with his own silence, and still stood upright. She's drawn to the man who doesn't posture or perform, but who carries an integrity that holds up under pressure. The man whose presence feels like a shelter, not because he promises certainty, but because he moves with quiet alignment between his words and his truth. She doesn't choose the one who's always right. She chooses the one who's real, even when it's uncomfortable. Because in a world of noise, it is rare to find someone who listens inward first. She chooses the one who stands not because he needs to be chosen, but because he knows who he is, even when he's alone. She feels for a man whose masculinity is not a shield, but a vessel, calm, deep, and dependable. The one who leads not through noise, but through the steadiness of his presence. That's the man she can build with, and that's the man you are becoming if you're still here, listening, reflecting, and choosing to grow. So, before we part ways, here's something to sit with. Don't focus on impressing her. Focus on understanding yourself, living with honesty, presence, and quiet strength. Because when that becomes your foundation, she won't need to be convinced. She'll feel it. If this video spoke to something real in you, give it a like, share it with someone you trust, and subscribe to the channel. Not just to support the work, but to help this kind of reflection reach more men who are ready for it. And I'm Vernon, and thanks for watching my video.